Hello and welcome to the Luv Doc podcast with hosts Waldo Wachewski and Ophelia Bruschi.
Today, we are focusing on a feeling I think almost everyone remembers. It's that mix of complete terror and total excitement that basically defines the freshman year of college.
It's a unique kind of chaos.
It is. And specifically, we're looking at what happens when you try to cram a very serious high school relationship into that whole transition. And, it just keeps breaking.
This is such a classic dilemma, but our listener, we're going to call her Broken, she's given us an incredible amount of personal history and her own self-diagnosis.
Which is so helpful.
It's hugely helpful. It lets us move past the usual platitudes, the plenty of fish in the sea stuff, and actually look at the underlying structural and even historical forces that are at play here.
So what's the plan for today?
Well, we're going to analyze the response she received from the Luv Doc, and we're going to focus on why this particular time, her first year in Austin, is just an absolute crucible for these early relationships. And maybe more importantly, why she has this immense historical luxury of not rushing this decision at all.
Okay, let's unpack this then. So Broken is struggling with this on-again, off-again dynamic with her high school boyfriend. And the conflict here isn't just about, the long distance. It's much deeper. It's emotional. Her heart is basically arguing for love, for perseverance, saying, things will get better if we just try harder.
But her head is asking a much harder question.
A brutal question. It's asking, how can I be with someone who left me broken? Which is just, wow. It's this huge conflict between the hope she feels and the reality she's actually lived through.
And to really appreciate the sheer emotional exhaustion that's packed into that question, we have to look at the timeline she provided. Because it is, let's just say, it's alarmingly intense and very, very condensed.
Intense is absolutely the word. So the relationship starts senior year of high school, pretty standard. But the instability, it starts almost right away.
Yeah, it doesn't take long.
We have the first breakup logged in February 2025. Then just 1 month later, March 2025, they're back together.
Okay, quick turnaround.
Very quick. And then there's a second and what seemed like a more definitive breakup in May 2025. This is right before summer, right before the big move to college.
So 2 major breakups in what, 4 months?
4 months, 2 crashes. It's a lot.
That's a pattern right there.
Yeah.
It's this cycle of really high intensity followed by this abrupt withdrawal. And despite being broken up for that second time, the reader says that over the summer, they grew incredibly close again.
Which is such a dangerous emotional entanglement, isn't it? It's that one last summer feeling, which often happens right before a big geographical separation.
It is. So then she finally moves to Austin for school, and they try the classic maneuver. Strict, no contact.
The thing everyone says you're supposed to do.
Right.
Yeah.
How did that go?
Well, as we know from the Luv Doc, it failed miserably. She managed to distract herself for a grand total of 1 month. This is what's forcing this required painful space to think that, led her to write in for advice in the first place.
So the whole cycle is proximity, then pain, then an attempt at creating space, which fails, and then it's an immediate reversion back to closeness.
It's emotionally exhausting just reading about it. I can't imagine living it.
But what stands out to me the most, and I think what really validates this whole Luv Doc, is her own assessment of the problem.
What she thinks is going on.
Exactly. She seems to anticipate that people will just blame him or blame this situation, but she insists that the issues never came from a genuine lack of care. She's really adamant that they both struggled because of their own insecurities and attachments.
And that is such a critical piece of information. I mean, that's incredibly self-aware.
It is.
It means the decision isn't about whether they love each other. I think she's pretty clear they do. The question is whether they are emotionally capable of being in a healthy relationship right now.
And it seems like the answer so far has been no.
Right. She says they both tried really hard to be better for each other and ourselves. But the fact that they've failed twice, despite all that intense effort and that genuine care, it tells us that just wanting it to work isn't enough to overcome these really entrenched, insecure patterns they've built.
And that context, her own diagnosis, leads us directly into the first major structural hurdle that they're facing, the freshman year transition itself.
So the first thing the Luv Doc does, which I think is so smart, is they just clock the age of our listener.
Yeah, they do the math.
They do the math. Based on the timeline she gave, they calculate that Broken is, and I quote, at most, maybe 19. Now, this might sound really basic, But that age immediately dictates the entire conversation.
It changes everything.
Yeah.
We are dealing with a brain that is in a massive, and I mean massive, state of developmental flux.
You're not an adult yet, not really.
Not at all. We're talking about the very tail end of adolescence and the very beginning of actual independent adulthood. Studies show that your frontal lobes, the part of your brain responsible for planning, for judgment, for emotional regulation, they're still maturing at a really rapid pace.
So you're literally not equipped to handle all of this yet.
Right. And then you couple that internal, biological volatility with this huge external upheaval, moving hundreds of miles from home, trying to manage college-level courses, navigating entirely new social systems.
With zero safety net.
Zero safety net.
Yeah.
You're creating a situation of just maximum psychological pressure. So this isn't just a difficult relationship. It's a difficult relationship happening during peak identity crisis.
And the Luv Doc drives this home almost instantly with a truly, a relatable, but slightly humiliating anecdote.
Yeah, it is.
The Luv Doc shares their own trauma from being 19. They talk about being dumped.
First semester.
First semester for a busboy at a TGI Fridays style restaurant she was working at.
The detail about the TGI Fridays style restaurant, it really grounds it, doesn't it? It makes it so specific.
It does. It sounds almost like a joke, but the lesson the Luv Doc pulls from it is deadly serious.
Never underestimate the allure of proximity.
I have to pause there, though. A busboy. That feels almost insulting. You leave a serious long-term known relationship for someone who is clearing plates. It seems completely irrational when you first hear it.
It does seem irrational, but that irrationality is actually the key insight. The busboy wasn't necessarily a better romantic partner. He wasn't more handsome or smarter or kinder.
He was there.
He was available. He was physically present. He was a known entity in her new, scary daily routine, and he offered immediate comfort and validation during a time of extremely high vulnerability.
That makes so much sense. When Broken moved to Austin, she was plunged into this world of, 50,000 strangers?
A sea of new faces. And that amount of novelty is it's exhausting. In the absence of an established support system, you have no familiar faces, no lifelong friends, no family anywhere nearby. The human brain just defaults to what's familiar. It defaults to the easiest source of emotional anchoring it can find.
And that perfectly explains why the no contact rule failed. She tried for 1 month. But just think about the sheer emotional bandwidth that's consumed by that first month of college.
Oh, it's insane.
You're finding your classes, you're trying to register for clubs, you're figuring out your roommates, you're tackling your first real college-level assignments. When all that stress peaked, the easiest path to emotional relief wasn't, building a whole new friendship network from scratch.
Which takes months, if not years.
Right. It was reaching back to that shared history, reaching back to the comfortable anchor, even if that anchor had already caused her so much pain.
Absolutely. The shared history with the high school boyfriend became an amplified force in this new environment. It wasn't just a relationship anymore. It was a connection to her past identity.
Ah, that's a great point.
Which is an incredibly stabilizing thing to have when your present identity is being actively challenged and sort of broken down and reformed by the collegiate environment. The stress of that transition makes proximity, even emotional proximity over the phone, a magnetic force.
Yeah.
It just overrides good judgment.
So it's not that the relationship was inherently stronger than her resolve. It was that her need for familiarity was stronger than her plan for separation.
Precisely. And that whole context is what makes the Luv Doc's next observation so powerful that the first year of college is inherently pivotal for testing these kinds of relationships.
The ultimate stress test.
It is the ultimate stress test.
Yeah.
But the analysis the Luv Doc provides on this point is extremely nuanced. And I think we need to slow down and really think about the implications here.
Okay.
They acknowledge that if a high school relationship does manage to survive freshman year, it is, and I'm quoting, really saying something.
Right.
But they immediately follow that up with a caution. They say they not sure it's saying something good.
Okay, wait, I have to challenge that a little bit. We celebrate perseverance, right? If a couple navigates that huge geographical separation, the new social pressures, the intense academic demands, and they come out the other side still together, wouldn't that suggest a really profound level of commitment and trust? Why would that not be a good thing? Isn't finding stability during chaos inherently valuable?
That is a completely fair counterpoint, and I think it represents the common wisdom on this. But the Luv Doc is arguing from a different perspective. They're arguing from the perspective of individual growth during the collegiate stage.
Ah, okay.
College is, at its core, it's a subsidized environment for self-discovery. The whole system is designed to force you to shed your old habits and to encounter new intellectual and social challenges.
So if the relationship survives, it might be because the two partners prioritized preserving the relationship over that individual exploration and growth.
Precisely. That's the risk. If survival means that Broken hesitated to join that interesting new club, or she avoided making strong social connections with people in Austin because she felt obligated to spend every free minute on the phone with, or planning visits with her hometown partner,
then she's sacrificing the very purpose of her enrollment.
Exactly. College necessitates learning how to meet new people. It necessitates learning how to deal with conflict among strangers and exploring new ideas that actually challenge your core beliefs. If a high school relationship becomes this kind of defensive shell against that necessary challenge, then the survival of the relationship comes at the immense opportunity cost of her own personal evolution.
It becomes stagnation that's just dressed up as loyalty.
That's a perfect way to put it. And when you factor in her specific situation where the relationship is already carrying all this baggage, 2 serious breakups, these intense feelings of rejection, the stakes get even higher.
Right, because that rejection baggage has to act like an emotional drag on everything she's doing.
A huge drag. Think about it. If 80% of her mental energy is being consumed by trying to manage the lingering pain, the uncertainty, the insecurity that was caused by those previous breakups, how much capacity does she really have left to engage with the demands of, say, an engineering major, or the complexities of a new social landscape in a new city?
Very little.
The Luv Doc suggests that holding on to a relationship that's defined by past pain inherently hinders your ability to step forward into the future. She is basically trying to heal a wound while simultaneously applying pressure to keep that same wound open.
It's the ultimate paradox. The goal they both say they share, being better for each other and ourselves, is ironically best achieved when they are forced to define who ourselves even are independently in this new environment.
The emotional bandwidth required for freshman year's success and personal discovery is finite. It's a limited resource. And if it's all being spent trying to stabilize an already broken foundation, she's missing the crucial educational mandate of being in Austin.
And this realization, this idea that she has the option to just hit pause on this emotional drain, it requires a massive shift in perspective.
A huge shift. A shift that the Luv Doc delivers by pulling us way, way back, hundreds of years into historical context. We're about to move from the intimate, immediate pressure of being a freshman in Austin to the vast, sweeping structural pressures that dictated relationships for basically all of our ancestors. So when we talk about relationship pressures, we often think they're purely psychological or social.
Yeah, like pressure from your family or seeing all your friends get engaged on Instagram.
Exactly. But the deepest, oldest pressure isn't social at all. It's biological and it's logistical. It's the pressure of time. And this is where the Luv Doc provides just a profound intellectual reset. It connects our listeners' modern, very personal dilemma to the historical reality of life expectancy.
This is truly where my mind started to bend a little bit. The Luv Doc uses public health data to completely reframe the idea of modern romantic urgency. We're talking about the difference between a life lived by our standards today and a life lived under just severe, severe constraint.
The contrast is staggering.
Wow.
The Luv Doc uses the U.S. average life expectancy prior to the year 1900 as its benchmark.
Wow.
And that number was 47 years old.
47?
47. That is the average lifespan our great-great-grandparents were dealing with. Now you compare that to the approximate figure for 2025, which is 79 years.
That's 32 additional years of life. She's statistically been granted 32 extra years just by being born in this century.
It's an enormous amount of time.
It's almost 2/3 more time. If I'm expecting to live to 79, my youth, that period where I'm supposed to be exploring and finding myself, it lasts far, far longer than it did for someone who was, on the clock to die at 47.
The historical implications of that 47-year life expectancy are just immense. If you know deep down in your bones that you're unlikely to see your 50th birthday.
Yeah, not because of some freak accident, but just because that's normal.
Right, because of rampant infectious disease, a total lack of modern medicine, or just the sheer danger of childbirth or manual labor. your entire timeline for establishing a family unit is radically truncated.
It imposes an extreme time constraint on finding a partner, on compatibility. If you're going to pair up, you have to do it fast. You need to marry, secure resources, and start having children almost immediately to ensure the continuity of your family line before disease or just old age claims you.
Exactly. People in the pre-1900 era, they simply didn't have time to explore compatibility by timidly dipping a toe in the dating pool.
There was no pool to dip your toe into.
There was no pool. They were often marrying by their mid-teens or early 20s, not primarily out of romance, but out of sheer logistical necessity. Think about agricultural communities. You needed a partner to help run the farm or manage the household because you physically could not do the labor alone. Stability trumped emotional fulfillment every single time.
That makes the modern concept of like dating to find myself or I need to explore my needs in a relationship. It makes it sound like an incredible privilege, a privilege reserved solely for the extremely long-lived.
It is.
Holy crap! You're psychotically obsessed with the Luv Doc, but can't think of a flashy gauche way to share your obsession with the world? Stop thinking and make a beeline for the Luv Doc's home sweet home on the interwebs, thepleasurecraft.com, where you can find a veritable treasure trove of sick merch that will make even your coolest friends super gel. Honestly, I don't know why you didn't already think of this yourself, but you're welcome. Have fun on the Pleasure Craft. It was made just for you. Let me spell it out for you one more time. www.thepleasurecraft.com.
If they were looking for a relationship that would last maybe 20-25 years before one or both partners died, the goals were just fundamentally different from our current quest for a 60-year partnership.
The goals were survival.
The goals were stability, economic viability, and child rearing. And we have to remember, infant and child mortality rates, they're horrifyingly high. So you had to start reproducing early and often, which just further accelerated the entire timeline. The modern freedom that Broken has, the freedom to delay marriage until her late 20s or even 30s, was absolutely unthinkable in that environment.
I think this is where the Luv Doc's simple but really powerful reassurance lands so well. It says she doesn't need to feel the pressure of becoming a grandma by age 32.
Alas.
It's such a casual statement, but it perfectly summarizes this massive societal liberation that modern longevity has given us.
It's a permission slip wrapped inside a statistic. That pressure she feels, that feeling that you must secure your partner now or that your high school partner is the only good one you'll ever find, that is an inherited anxiety. It's a ghost from a time of scarcity and short lifespans.
So the high school sweetheart who lasts a lifetime, that whole trope, it was less about soulmates and more about a lack of options.
It was often a product of necessity. Mobility was low, your options were few. And divorce was either legally impossible or socially ruinous, which meant you were pretty much stuck with your choice, whether it fostered compatibility or not.
So when we see our listener agonizing over her insecurities and attachments, we're realizing that this is, in a way, a luxury problem.
A complete luxury problem. She has the time and the choice to seek emotional fulfillment and compatibility and security precisely because she is not facing that 47-year clock.
And the Luv Doc really hammers this point home with an incredibly blunt, it's an almost jarring quote that's clearly designed to shock the listener out of any romanticization of historical early coupling.
Yeah, this is where it gets really interesting.
It really is. The source material introduces this very specific, very memorable detail. It claims that because of all these constraints, people took what they could get, which in certain backwoods Appalachian hollers sometimes look like something off the island of Dr. Moreau.
That quote is intentionally provocative. We have to stop and analyze why on earth the Luv Doc would use such a dramatic comparison. They're referencing an H.G. Wells novel about, biological deformity and these terrifying engineered hybrid creatures.
It sounds incredibly harsh, maybe even overly dramatic. Why go to that extreme?
The extremity is a rhetorical tool. It's meant to underscore the intensity of those historical constraints. It's an intellectual sledgehammer. It's suggesting that when time is scarce, when survival is the absolute top priority, and when your geographical options are basically nil, the standards for partner selection just drop drastically.
You aren't dating for optimal compatibility.
You are pairing for immediate necessary resource security and labor pooling, period.
So the implication isn't necessarily literal physical deformity, but more. The kind of genetically limiting or emotionally stunted or intellectually confining relationships that result when pure necessity rather than choice governs who you mate with.
Precisely. If that short lifespan and that very small community size led to relationships that were sometimes socially or genetically limited, forced pairings that prioritized family lineage, or just sheer proximity over individual well-being, then modern individuals have to recognize how fundamentally different their situation is.
Right.
Broken is not living in an isolated hollow with only a handful of potential mates and a deadline of 47. She's in Austin, Texas, with decades and decades ahead of her. Her expectation should not be survival. Her expectation should be self-actualization and finding true compatibility.
It provides the ultimate structural context for her problem. The agony she feels about possibly losing this known familiar person is rooted in a historical, almost primal fear of being alone and unsecured.
But the reality of her long lifespan dictates the exact opposite. She has the freedom, and frankly, she has the responsibility to herself, to use this time to prioritize self-discovery and a much slower, more intentional assessment of compatibility. She doesn't need to settle for a relationship that has already demonstrated these deep patterns of insecurity and rejection.
So this framing, it changes the entire perspective. The question isn't, can she make this work? The question is, why would she choose to spend her abundant time fixing something that may be fundamentally misaligned for her future self?
Especially when the statistical and historical record proves she has ample time to find something much stronger. And this brings us right back to the present moment in Austin and the primary purpose of her move there in the first place.
Yeah.
Her education.
Okay, so let's ground all this big historical context back into the listener's immediate reality. She came to Austin and she used this specific phrase to expand her knowledge.
And that phrase, expand my knowledge, it immediately makes you think of academics, right? Textbooks, lectures, labs.
Yeah, getting her degree.
But the Luv Doc very wisely reframes it. It points out that a huge and often uncosted part of a collegiate education is the non-academic curriculum. And that is, quote, learning how to meet new people and explore new ideas.
This is the priceless part of the college tuition bill that we so often overlook, isn't it? It's the 4 years of forced proximity to different cultures, different socioeconomic backgrounds, and these wildly diverse intellectual viewpoints that you will just never experience so cleanly again in your adult life.
It's about maximizing your social surface area. The university literally curates a community for you. It provides this environment where social experimentation is relatively low stakes and exposure to new things is incredibly high. You're supposed to be learning social dynamics, conflict resolution outside of your family unit, and, most importantly, identifying your own non-negotiable compatibility criteria.
And if she is tethered to a high school relationship that requires this intense, repetitive emotional maintenance, that non-academic education is severely compromised. It might sound like a cliche, but her emotional energy really is a zero-sum game.
It is absolutely a zero-sum game, especially for an already overwhelmed freshman. The Luv Doc is very direct about the feasibility of her succeeding here. It suggests there is a much lower probability of her succeeding in this social exploration while she's carrying the emotional baggage of a twice-broken relationship and those feelings of rejection in tow.
Let's delve a little deeper into that opportunity cost. Is the Luv Doc saying it's completely impossible to maintain a difficult relationship and still grow as a person? Or is it just that the growth will be dramatically slower and less effective?
It's the latter, but the difference is profound. I mean, if you are constantly checking your phone, constantly analyzing the subtext of text, constantly worrying about the next fight or the next breakup, you are operating at an emotional deficit.
You're distracted.
Constantly.
Yeah.
You cannot truly listen to the new perspectives in your sociology class or genuinely connect with a new person in your study group if your internal dialogue is being consumed by relationship anxiety. She is paying tens of thousands of dollars for the opportunity to expand her worldview, but that world is shrinking right back down to her phone screen and the emotional drama of this one single relationship.
This circles right back to the stated goal they both have, being better for each other and ourselves.
Right.
The Luv Doc implies that to truly be better for ourselves, they actually need space from each other. But by staying close, as they are now, they're just reinforcing the very patterns, the insecurities, and the attachments that broke them up in the first place.
It's the definition of a self-fulfilling prophecy. Insecurity is best cured by building independent resilience, right? By finding your self-worth through your own achievements, by proving to yourself that you are whole, all by yourself.
And attachment issues are best mitigated how?
By experiencing new relationships, new friendships, new contexts, things that demonstrate the sheer vastness of the world outside of that one person. By staying close, they're prioritizing the management of their mutual fear of separation over the actual pursuit of independent psychological stability.
So the key advice is use the environment that you paid for, Focus on the core mission of college, which is independent growth. But this inevitably leads to a huge fear, doesn't it?
The big one.
If I let go now, will I ever find someone again? Will I be too far behind everyone else? This is where the Luv Doc provides that statistical balm, that comfort.
Yes, the statistical comfort is the perfect antidote to that fear of loneliness or the fear of running out of time. The Luv Doc points to a really definitive finding. The listener has hope of finding her soulmate by the time she is 28.5 years old.
28.5, that is incredibly precise. It almost sounds like a totally arbitrary target. What is the significance of 28.5 years old in this context?
That number isn't arbitrary at all. It actually reflects the national aggregate reality. It is statistically the age most women get married these days. This statistic is such a powerful tool because it gives her concrete evidence that she has approximately 9 years.
A decade, basically.
Her entire 20s, essentially. 9 years to explore, to date, to define her values, to establish her career before she even hits the current decile average for settling down.
When you put that number against the backdrop of the 47-year life expectancy we were just talking about, it's revolutionary. Historically, being 28.5 would have meant you were well past half your life. You'd likely be marked as a spinster.
Absolutely. And today, it marks the beginning of the established partnership phase for many people.
It reinforces that central message that she is not behind schedule. She is exactly on time for the modern timeline.
Right. The pressure she's feeling is artificial. It's a residue of these historical and maybe familial expectations that just no longer apply to her life. The 28.5 mark gives her permission to delay gratification. It gives her permission to walk away from something that is actively causing her distress and to pursue the kind of growth that will make her a much more resilient and compatible partner when she eventually reaches that later benchmark.
I do wonder, though, how much stock should she really put into a national average? What if she doesn't find someone by 28.5? Does this statistic then risk becoming just another source of pressure?
That is a crucial question, and the Luv Doc addresses it brilliantly with the final statistical caveat. It says if 28.5 isn't the marrying age for her, she should not sweat it. This is where we emphasize the fluidity of averages.
So the statistic is a guidepost, not a hard and fast law.
Exactly. The Luv Doc predicts, and I think quite reasonably, that the world is large, and this statistical average will likely continue to shift outward by the year 2035 anyway. Societal trends are all favoring later marriage, and that's driven by increased education, by economic demands, and ironically, by our longer lifespans.
It's a feedback loop.
It is.
Yes.
So by recognizing that the average itself is constantly moving, we empower the listener to ignore arbitrary deadlines altogether. Her goal shouldn't be to get married by 28.5. Her goal should be to find maximal compatibility and personal stability, regardless of when the average says she should be crossing that finish line.
It's the perfect full circle moment, really. The historical view shows she has the time. The personal context of her freshman year shows she needs the time. And the statistical context reassures her that society as a whole is moving at the same pace she needs to be. The data confirms the importance of her focusing on the present moment, not panicking about the future.
And that focus means capitalizing on the unique opportunity of her freshman year to maximize exploration and independent self-definition, rather than retreating into the painful, familiar patterns of the past.
This Luv Doc really showed how historical context and hard statistics can provide some profound guidance for what feels like a purely personal and emotional crisis. We've kind of synthesized the advice from the Luv Doc into 3 core tenets for Broken.
Yeah, 3 key takeaways. First, she has to recognize the unique volatility of this present moment. The freshman year transition is an extremely high-risk time for high school relationships. It's amplified by that relentless allure of proximity and just the immense emotional pressure of starting a completely new life.
And the idea that the relationship survival might actually signal stagnation, not strength.
Exactly. Second, she needs to fully understand the gift of time. She's operating under the immense luxury of a 79-year life expectancy, which fundamentally eradicates that historical necessity of pairing up early.
She has nearly a decade before hitting the average modern marriage age, and she should use that time to prioritize exploration over constant emotional maintenance.
And third, college is the primary field for independent growth. The emotional bandwidth that's consumed by trying to fix a foundation that is already cracked twice is bandwidth that is stolen from her non-academic curriculum. That crucial process of learning who she is and what she genuinely needs in all these new social environments.
It really all boils down to, where is her focus? Is it on stabilizing an insecure past? Or is it on building a resilient future for herself?
And this leads us to our final provocative thought. And it builds directly on her own diagnosis that their problems are driven by insecurities and attachments. The Luv Doc advised her to keep your head on a swivel.
To be observant.
To be very observant. If they are staying close, despite this stated need for space and for independent self-improvement, we have to ask a really challenging question. Whose insecurity is driving this proximity?
Ooh, that is a critical lens to look through. Because if one partner's fear of loneliness is overriding the other partner's need for space to heal from rejection,
then the relationship is prioritizing the maintenance of insecurity over the possibility of mutual growth.
it's enabling the problem.
It's actively enabling the problem. If Broken stays close out of obligation or out of her own fear, she risks missing the entire point of her time in Austin. Loving someone is the easy part. It's a powerful primal feeling. But being ready for someone, especially someone you already love, requires having stable, independent growth first. That growth is what Austin demands of her right now. The moment she chooses her own independent healing, she reclaims the decades of choice and self-definition that history has gifted her.
And that is the thought we leave with you. Observe the patterns, trust the time that you have, and use this pivotal year to build yourself, first and foremost.
To read the column that spawned this podcast, go to austinchronicle.com/columns/the Luv Doc. There are probably worse things to do with your time, right?